Hello, this is Matthew with Smart Black Guy. Today we're going to be talking about how to succeed in the world of daily fantasy sports. Now, this is mainly intended for folks playing fantasy football, but for any sport, you'll be able to pick up some of the techniques that I'm about to give you. So don't just tune out because you play fantasy soccer or anything else. There's some good tricks in here that apply to all types of games. And by daily fantasy sports, we're talking about Fanduel and Draftkings, etc. So let's just get right to it. So we're going to start off by talking about what games to play, how to spend, what players you should be buying, the do nots, stacking, bonus tips, and that's it for that. And we're going to get into what to play. So fantasy football is by far the most predictable / best game to gamble on, simply based off of how easy it is to win. It's predictable but not too predictable, so it has a bit of depth, but you're competing with a lot of people that don't take these easy steps that I'm about to give you. So what I'm about to give you will give you a huge edge. And I've played almost every other sport, especially soccer. I'm a big soccer fan, and knowledge is not all that important. In fact, you'll find some of the most successful fantasy football players don't even watch football. Avoid high prize games. These are the games that award to the 0.01% of players, like those $1 million prizes. Just don't even worry about them. In all honesty, it's just a waste of money in my opinion. I mean, the odds of winning is just so slim. You can't predict fantasy football 100%. So I wouldn't even waste my money. With that being said, I would stick to just only playing 50-50s and head-to-heads. I would split between the two, as in I'd spend half my money on 50-50s and half my money on head-to-heads. The advantages being with 50-50s is that you can get a relatively low or high score and you'll win every 50-50 just about. So if you're really confident in your game, you might want to edge more towards that. But the benefit to head-to-heads is you can get a low score and still win some. So that's why I like to play both, just because, I mean, in general, if you do really well and in say 50-50s, you'll win most of your head-to-heads anyways. So what types of games should you play? I would suggest going with the lower and mid-level games. These are the $1 to $9 entry fees, and the mids are $10 to $99. I would suggest definitely avoiding the games that are priced higher than that, where the entry fee is like $100 plus, as in a lot of these individuals are absolute sharks who have nothing better to do than play fantasy football, and they judge everything, like player traits, how I performed last year, just all type of stuff, like confidence. How did he do this weekend? What food was he? I don't know. Stuff like that, like pretty much everything. So, but what's neat is, you don't have to just join a low-level game if you're new to the game. You're going to have the same amount of success with mid-level games, and you might enjoy mid-level games more because the turnout and the payout is a lot better. You're going to enjoy winning $20 more than $2 if you put like a lot of effort into picking your lineup. So it might just be worth playing mid-level games. How should you spend? So what you're going to want to do is spend in this order, starting with running backs and ending with tight ends. And it's all based off of consistency. So running backs are the most consistent. They're always going to get yards, whereas tight ends only get points from touchdown passes generally. So you don't want to rely on touchdown passes as your main chunk in 50-50s. So you just got to think of what's going to get me the highest average point in like a 50-50 or head-to-head. So Again, when you're picking, choose running backs, quarterbacks, defense, wide receiver, tight end. And it's all about value per points. Now, this is a really big concept that I want you to pay attention to. So, and I have an example of value per points. Say you see a player that's worth 3,000, you're going to want him, and he's projected to get, say, 34 points, versus a player that's worth 1,000 and is projected to only get 22 points. Now, it's even has to do with the way that it's set up, because the most expensive players are projected at the top. But you got to look at it a little bit deeper. So the guy that has 3,000, it's worth 3,000, is only getting you, or is costing you $88.23 per point. Whereas the guy that's getting you 22 points is only costing you $45.45 per point. So that's how you got to look at it. You got to look at who can get you the lowest number per point. And keep in mind, with these games, you're on a budget. It's not like you can just buy the most expensive players. So, who to buy? So, a neat little trick is buy running backs and tight ends at home. The logic behind this is that running backs, first of all, home teams typically win more. So, and at the end of games, when you're winning, the running back will take a lot of the offensive load, because you don't want to just pass, intercept. I mean, if you watch football, you'll understand that. And tight ends at home, because home teams typically win more, so they get in the end zone more, which is where tight ends get a majority of their points. So that's a smart little tip. Just make sure you pick a running back and tight end that's playing at home. Get pass catching running backs. This one is a little complex and kind of hard to explain, but it's all about consistency. You want somebody with options to get points. So if you have a running back, say for instance Matt Forte, he's kind of like the ideal model of the pass catching running back. He'll get you points from catching passes and from getting touches on the ball. So it's almost guaranteed he's more liable to get points. Like if they're really stuffing the running game, he might still get points from catching a pass. So just keep that in mind. Try to get players that get a lot of touches. This is mostly with running backs. So if you see a player, for instance, gets 100 points, that's okay. Let's say like player gets like 30, 40 points, but he only gets like 3-4 touches on the ball. So he just got like 2 touchdowns, and but say you see a player that gets way more touches, like 20, 30 touches, but gets less points, I'll definitely go over the touches, whoever gets more touches, because it's all based off of consistency. Odds are next game, the more touches, the more chances you have to score. So it's just like a good barometer of the type of player you should buy. So really pay attention to that. That's a good thing I always look at. Try to pick out players that are on a cold streak. So if a player is on a cold streak and you know that they can score, like say check their stats, see if they haven't scored in like 2 or 3 games, odds are they're going to score in that 3rd game, because these are professional athletes and that's what they get paid to do. So and overall they're moderately consistent. So if a player hasn't scored, like I said, in like 2-3 games, his value might drop too. His points might drop. He's not really on a hot streak. Not only will you get a good deal, you have a player that has a pretty high percentage of scoring and getting you some decent points. Things to not do. Avoid starting quarterbacks and wide receivers or tight ends in division games. It's just during these games, the competition, the emotion, it throws a lot of players off, mainly the quarterback, and the quarterback kind of controls the wide receiver and tight end. So just avoid starting quarterback, wide receivers, and tight ends in division games unless you just know it's going to be lopsided. But still, it's just statistics. Avoid quarterback, wide receivers in games, tight ends in games with heavy wind speed and cold weather. So if you're looking at the forecast and it's really windy, it looks cold like Wisconsin, you're going to want to try to avoid starting that quarterback. And on the flip side, you might want to consider starting a running back in a game with poor weather. Don't play two running backs in the same game. As in, don't play two running backs that are competing against each other and put them both on your team. So, what always ends up happening is one running back will outperform the other, and it mainly is the running back that won will outperform the other running back. So, I would just, general rule of thumb, just pick the running back that's more likely to be on a winning team. Don't buy players against heavy rushing teams. Why? Because it's as simple as this. So, teams that rush a lot, it shortens the game. And when the game is shortened, less points are to be made. So, say for instance, you only played the first 3 quarters of a game. That just means that you're going to get less points. Because, the more points, the better. Or the more time, the better. So, if you want to do some good research, figure out the teams that rushed heavily the year before and figure out if they have the same running back and the same offensive coordinator, and odds are they're going to be a heavy rushing team that next year. So that's just doing a little research to make you some money. Stacking. So we're going to cover stacking. I only have 2 legitimate pieces of advice with stacking because, in all honesty, it's not that useful of a tactic if you really think about it. But what you can do is stack running backs on defenses on favorite teams to win when they're playing at home. So, and I include the Packers because they win a lot and their defense is good too. So if they're playing at home and you have the option to choose a running back and defense, I would just go with them. It's a good stack to use. Quarterback, wide receivers have the highest stack. I almost didn't want to include this in my presentation because I can't really give you a good explanation as to why, but this is just purely based off of statistics that I've researched. So if you're ever just curious, quarterbacks and wide receivers is the highest stack available. But let's continue. So just to wrap everything up, make sure you play winnable games. You buy smart. Pay attention to value again. Stack smart. And download my latest cheat sheet. So I'm giving you guys like a nice free cheat sheet because there's a lot to explain, and a lot to remember. So I don't really expect you guys to remember everything I just went through. So I download my little cheat sheet and then post it on like your board or whatever right before you play, and make sure you just try to do all the little tricks before you pick your team. That's all. Bonus prize games. So I understand earlier in this presentation I said that these are totally pointless and that you never win. Well, I would suggest spending less than 5% of your, weekly amount on prize games. You should never really enter more than one because you just really only need to win once for it to be worth it. And stack more. So really gamble on a winning team. And then keep in mind, we're talking about lowest percentage. So my strategy would be to just pick a team that you almost think has no chance of winning, but like you could kind of see an upset and somebody putting up numbers, and just pick like stack that team. Pick like the quarterback, running back, tight end, defense, and that kind of like that's a good way to weed you out of everybody else, because in order to be in that top percentage, you can't choose like really popular players in really popular scenarios. So you have to kind of be renegade when you do that type of stuff. And again, with the player buy, you're going to do the opposite of you would with a head-to-head or 50-50 game. So you want to pick the most unpredictable players first. You want to spend most of your money on tight ends like Rob Gronkowski. Pick a good high potential wide receiver, like a wide receiver that you could see getting a 3-4 touchdown breakout game. Pick a defense. Well, I'd still go with a defense that you think would win. Quarterback. Yeah, pick a quarterback that maybe the odds are against him. And then spend a little on running backs. Maybe even get a backup running back. But if you're going to win, you got to just go with, you got to bank on that tight end and wide receiver really getting you a bulk of your points. Alright guys, that's it for my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to get some good knowledge from it. The world of fantasy goes quite deep. I didn't cover any tools that people typically use. I think this should be good enough to win you a good percentage more games. And again, download my cheat sheet. It's free. I'm going to put a link in the description. So download it and make sure you use it. And comment, share, let me know what you guys think, if it's effective or not. But alright, thank you for watching guys. Take care.